Welcome to the Life in Pink podcast, where dreams come true, women are inspired, and wealth is our business. I want you to know that you matter and life is much better with you in it. Welcome back, ladies and listeners. I hope you guys are all doing well, and I hope this podcast reaches you in a good mood today. Today, this podcast episode, we're going to talk about the subtle behaviors of those to be cautious and wary of, for those to be ready for, and for the signs and symptoms of jealousy. Okay, listen, even if they are just having a bad day, the traits are most likely the same. Okay, so let's just put that out there. And I also want to hop in with a short disclaimer. Okay, these behaviors are mentioned to bring awareness, to protect your mental health from those whose behaviors or actions towards you has nothing to do with you, but a problem or insecurity within themselves. Okay, so be aware that these behaviors may not always be a cautious warning for a threatening encounter and could be subject to differ depending on the person and, the personality traits. So please do your due diligence when discerning the difference, okay? So let's dive right in. When discussing subtle signs of those to be cautious of or jealousy, especially among women, it's important to approach the subject with mindfulness. Okay. Also, jealousy can manifest in ways that aren't always overt, but can still be quite impactful. Okay. Overt meaning they're not always in the open. They're not always something that you can take note of. So if you're someone who has a hard time discerning whether or not people like you, then this might be an interesting podcast topic for you, okay? So let's start with backhanded compliments. A person might compliment you, but when they do, it feels more like a critique or it puts you down in a way. For example, you look great today. I almost didn't recognize you. Or I wish I could pull off that style, but I don't think it's for everyone. Or if they compliment you and they say, you look great today and I almost didn't recognize you, they say something like without makeup, right? Let's talk about undermining achievements. If someone downplays or dismisses your success, most of the time that is a sign of jealousy. And this could be, through just minimizing your hard work or suggesting that your accomplishments were just like luck or easy, or, you copied, or they aren't authentic. They didn't come directly from you, right? Or overly competitive behaviors. Some people will subtly compete with you, even in a non-competitive situation. Like, they might try to one up you or always try to show that they're better, even in casual conversations or just friendly activities, right? Or disengagement or coldness. A person who feels jealous might distance themselves from you, when you're sharing good news or success. They could become quieter than usual or, less enthusiastic all of a sudden. Or maybe showing passive disinterest or offering short, like lukewarm responses. Like, oh, great. Oh, that's cute. Or they always have to put little before they compliment you. They say something like, oh, I see you got a little house. I had a girl tell me today at the store, "Oh, I like your little hair." I've never heard that one before, right? Or gossip or talking behind your back, a classic. We all know people to be wary of, or jealous individuals often, speak upon you negatively behind your back, or, when you're not around in front of other people. And normally this is just an attempt to tarnish your reputation or undermine your confidence. Okay? Excessive complaining. Sometimes people to be wary of, or jealousy comes out as constant complaining or venting, where the individual constantly compares their situations to yours, and they really do seem to believe that they deserve better, or that their life is unfair compared to yours. In some type of way they always seem to reiterate that about themselves whenever you're talking about yourself or having a conversation with them. Or unnecessary criticism. Someone who is jealous or to be wary of may, often find faults in the way you do things, even if it's not constructive. They try to pick apart, your appearance, your choices, or habits in subtle ways that feel like judgment, not advice, right? Or, ladies and listeners, withholding praise when it's due to you. If someone constantly fails to acknowledge your accomplishments or your efforts, even when it's appropriate, that can often be a sign of jealousy. Or they may act disinterested in your personal milestones, or try to deflect attention away from your success. Or imitating or copying. Imitation is not always the biggest form of flattery, okay? While imitation can be a form of flattery, driven, jealousy driven copying it's a little different. If someone starts to copy your style, your way of speaking, or your ideas a little bit too much, it might be because they're threatened by your uniqueness or want to overshadow your identity. And passive aggressive behavior, okay? This could involve small acts of hostility that aren't direct, but they still feel hurtful, like not including you in group activities, or making sideways snood comments, or subtly ignoring you when you need support. Little things like that. Pay attention to that type of stuff. It's important to note that these behaviors don't always mean someone is jealous, right? But they might just be signs of insecurity or misunderstanding. But when combined, they can indicate jealousy. However, the key is paying attention, okay, to how these behaviors affect your confidence, your sense of self-worth, and your overall well-being, because that's what matters. Now, before I wrap up this podcast today, I also want to throw in a few things that I've noticed too about people who, among our encounter, it wasn't the best at the end. And these are subtle signs that I've noticed about those type of individuals in the encounters I've had with them. And I want to share them today, okay? So, if you ever meet someone when they have a stoic demeanor, they're hard to read, they're just stoic. Or if, they're staring without blinking, looking you up and down while you're talking. Or if they seem argumentative within the first few words spoken. Like you barely got a word out and they're already being argumentative as a response to whatever it is you're saying. Or you're just noticing a blank stare during their approach. If they're approaching you and you just notice they have a blank stare, and it's hard for you to determine whether or not they're coming to compliment you, to ask you a question, or to tear you apart. Yeah. Or the obvious, right? They can't stop staring. Now, sometimes people stare because they think you're beautiful or they think you look exotic and they're trying to find out what race you are. However, I want you to use discernment because sometimes the staring is not always a good stare. So just be mindful. Or, maybe, a person that likes to twist the words that you've said to make you contradict yourself. Or asking someone to demonstrate on something you may not be good at in front of you. Yeah, just to kind of, put you on blast in a way. Or someone who watches your every move to place judgment and they just imply that it's because they care or have your back. Remember, if it doesn't make you feel good 9 times out of 10, your intuition is right. Okay? Or someone who has an impatient demeanor, like through the gate, like right off top. And not only do they have an impatient demeanor, but they're lightly tapping with their hands or feet while taking short, quick glances around the room, like an anxious behavior. These are behaviors I've noticed with guests when I worked in customer service as a front desk agent. I always knew the ones coming that were going to be a problem because this was their demeanor. Okay? Or maybe having a conversation with someone and then somebody else walks up to ask a question to the person that you're talking to. And then that somehow ends up being a question or statement that person turns to you to wait for a response from. Normally, this is executed just to talk to you in the first place, no matter if it was just to put you in a position to be criticized or attacked or bullied or judged or ostracized, or to simply speak to you, but they didn't know how to start a conversation with you. Or if it's because of a negative reason, it could be because they feel insecure, threatened by you. And they want a way to put you down, to bring you to their level so they can feel you're no better than them, so they can feel better about themselves. Okay? So these are the behaviors and subtle traits that I want you all to take heed of if you're a person who has a hard time discerning whether or not somebody is a good fit for you, or whether or not they really like you genuinely, or whether or not you're going to have a pleasant encounter with them. Okay? So I hope this helped, ladies and listeners, and I hope you all take this with you and let it be a mindful practice. And again, I want you guys to always take the time to take care of yourselves and to keep nurturing your spirit and embracing the luxury of living your best life. And until next time, ladies and beautiful listeners, I want you to embrace your softness, your strength, and all that makes you beautiful.